Okay, welcome back to another author interview with Crystal Lake. And today our guest is author J. Edwin Buja. I hope I pronounced that right.
Booyah.
Booyah. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You never know which way that J's going.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm going to let him introduce himself. So take it away.
Okay. I'm J. Edwin Booyah. John. I just use the J. Edwin because I had some children's books out way back when under John, and I didn't want anybody getting a shock if they thought I was the same person, even though I am. Um, I'm retired. I used to be a documentation specialist, manuals for high tech. Um, Spent a lot of time working in a bookstore, and now I spend my time reading and watching TV. And writing, of course.
Yeah, those are excellent pastimes, I must say. I do a lot of that myself. So,
Yeah.
so give everyone a quick overview of your book, Enough Time.
Okay. Yeah, I always hate this part. Okay, there are four major characters. There's the victim, the hero, the beast, and the friend. And starting in 1865, every 40 years, the beast kills the victim, and the hero tries to stop the beast, and the friend cleans up the mess. And this is happening over and over again. And the book was originally set in 20. Well, it's still set in 2020 because I wrote it, before 2025, which would be the next natural time. And the cycle starts a couple of years early because the friend wants to see if they can change things, maybe have a different outcome. Maybe everybody doesn't die for a change, and that's the main thrust of the book right now. Um, the contemporary part is the people trying to figure out who they are, what's going on, and why they're here. And then it's a lot of flashbacks to what happened before and what's probably going to happen, but you hope not, but we'll see. So that's pretty much it. It's sort of a time travel ghost story with some gore somewhere. I don't know, somewhere in time, sort of thing. Maybe meets Jack the Ripper, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there was actually a time travel Jack the Ripper too.
Time after time with Matt
Yeah, that.
Dell. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, mhm.
so what were your inspirations for writing the book?
Well, very beginning inspiration was I was at a convention in Rhode Island, a Nikon, which everybody seems to go to, back in 2005, and an editor put out an open call for. They were starting a series of books about an inn set in New Jersey, and I sent in a proposal and never heard, and that I ended up showing it at a writer's workshop, Borderlands, the next year, and then finally just decided to finish it. I basically was inspired. My friend Bruce Wozny wrote a song called "Enough Time," the lyrics of which are in the back of the book, and each chapter is a line from the song, and it's about trying again. You've met your lover yet again. Will it work this time? Will we have enough time to make it work? And it's just sort of repeating the cycle, and that's sort of what um, was the basic inspiration. And then I like history, so I just had a chance to research four different periods of history and work those in as well. And just basically everything I write is a romance. So I've got a hero and a heroine, and it's always seeing what happens between the two of them. So it kind of gives me a little bit more of inspiration there, a nice side of the horror.
Mm. Well, you need something to cut the horror in there. Yeah, yeah. I totally with you on researching the history. I love that.
Oh,
So.
yeah. Well, I have an MA in history, and so I've used my thesis biography as a basis for a children's book and a bunch of short stories, and like all these books you can see behind me. This is all World War One's, World War Two down there, Korea, the Civil War. I um, just love going into history, especially Canadian military history, because I'm in Canada,
Mm.
um, and finding different events and twisting it. So it's weird. The first short story I had published when I got serious back around 2017 um, was set in World War One, and it's an event that happened at the side of a real event, but the part I'm writing about is the stuff nobody knows about, where the monsters showed up. So I like doing that kind of thing, just twisting things. And the big appeal for me is doing the research.
Mm.
I mean, I did a short story last year where I spent an hour researching hacksaws, because the story, I know the story was set in 1837, and I needed a hacksaw, and I had to make sure that there were hacksaws in 1837. And
Yeah.
there were, and then I just, I always go down the rabbit hole. Like for this one, it's set in, like I say, 5 different time periods, but I had to go back and research slang terms from 1865, 1905, 1945, and 1985. Although I do remember 1985. And that's kind of a fun thing too. And that, down that rabbit hole with all the language stuff. And so that's always a blast. That's my
Yeah.
favorite part.
I've been down that rabbit hole with the hacksaws. I spent an hour researching doorknobs. So it's like what the Victorian doorknobs look like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
one sentence in a story.
Oh yeah. If I'm working with somebody, like if in a writing group, and somebody writes a story and I'm critiquing it, I'll, if they mention the song lyrics, I'll go looking for that song to make sure that it's appropriate for the time. A friend wrote a story, I think it was set in 1910, and he quoted a song that wasn't written until 1917. So that's the kind of lunatic I am. I like, better be historically accurate or somebody will notice. And that
Yeah,
would be
somebody
me.
always notices.
Somebody always does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I enjoy writing alternate history, because if you do make a mistake, well, you can just say it's just the alternate history.
So funny you mentioned that. I just finished a story last week. Again, trying to be historically accurate with World War One and World War Two. But then I've sort of created this secret organization, which was based in a real place, but then it didn't work for the time. So it suddenly occurred to me, I'm making this up. I don't have to follow the rules exactly. I can change the time. I can change the years for this. So it's, I can manipulate it a bit. Um, one does, well, I tend to get stuck on the, historical part. This is the right kind of gun. This is the right direction they were traveling. This is the right kind of plane that they were flying, and all this stuff. So it's nice to go crazy once in a while. And,
It is. So, what kind of a journey does your main character go through in the book? Basically, what kind of torture do you put her through?
well, the main male character, he's a history professor, and he's going to the small town in New Jersey to do research. He thinks there was an atomic submarine, a German atomic submarine in 1945. Everybody thinks he's a lunatic, so he's going there to research this. And his companion is his ex girlfriend, who wasn't really a girlfriend because she didn't want anybody to know that she was seeing him, and she's a total control freak, and she's a total not very nice person, based on somebody I used to know. So he's with her, and he's still in love with her, but he hates her, but he's in love with her. She treats him like dirt. And then he meets the heroine, and things change, and he starts to look at her, and he starts to stand up for himself. And at the same time, he and the heroine are remembering things that happened in the past. There's sort of kind of a reincarnation thing, and they're confused, and it's like, okay, why do I feel like when I look at that person, they're going to kill me? But why am I in love with you and I've never met you before? And what's wrong with him? So he goes through all this emotional turmoil, and can I save the love of my life, and can I save my own life? Who's the enemy? And at the end, well, I won't give away the end, but he figures it out. Let's just say.
Yeah, so you've got memories, nightmares, dreams,
Mhm.
and all this psychological undertone to the in the book. So, what appeals to you about that type of psychological ambiguous narrative?
Well, I like the dream idea. This is, I think, the first time I've done a lot of writing with dreams in it, because I can throw things in and throw in ideas, and if in the long run it doesn't work, I can either get rid of it or just say, "Oh, it was all a dream," so it doesn't really matter. Um, the psychological part, I have depression, so I kind of play on that. Like I know what it feels like to be messed up, so I like to do, do that to my characters, but then see how they can pull out of it. Um, So a lot of things that I write about are actually based on me. Um, so it's a little cathartic. I can write out my own problems and sort of so I wrote a short story a couple of years ago for a writing group that was based on a day in 2010 when I was contemplating suicide, and it was like so relieving to get to write that out and have somebody else read it. I couldn't read it to the group because it was too emotional, but to get some feedback on that and realize that I'm not alone, which was a good thing. So yeah, I think a lot of writers write their troubles into their stories to get them out of their head, because once it sticks in your head, depression can be a real bastard, and it just tells you stuff that isn't true. And so this is a small way of getting it out and becoming normal again. Except there's nothing abnormal about being depressed, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, as you were talking, the spectrum of mental instability is sort of around the characters because they don't know what's going on, whether
Hmm.
they're losing their minds or if it's real or what.
Yeah.
So, how much of the unreliable narrator aspect of that did you lean into?
Um, Not as much for the the reader. Um, it's more for the characters. Like, the one character is telling somebody else, "This is what happened," but he doesn't necessarily know if he's right or not. He's not sure, and the other person is skeptical. So the reader sort of knows what's going on, has an idea, but the characters themselves, nobody can trust anybody, because they're all like possibly making things up, and they're all remembering stuff that doesn't make sense, and that really throws them for a loop, because where do I turn to find the truth? Who's telling me the truth here? Because I got three different people coming at me telling me different things. Who do I believe? I can't trust any of them. So you know I have had other works where the narrator is actually unreliable for the reader, but this one, it's more the character interaction that's unreliable.
Well, that sounds interesting. I bet it has a nice layer of tension to the book.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, a character will meet somebody. Well, like I said, there were the four basic characters. So one of them, say in 1985, meets another one, and the other one is the Beast, and has never met this person before, but instinctively is afraid of him, hates him, wants to hurt him, and just doesn't understand why. It's like, what's going on here? Like, why am I feeling this? And another character is just like, I know something bad is coming. I don't think I can handle it. What am I going to do? Am I going to live through this again? Have I lived through this before? I don't know. What's real? Why am I going through all this crap? And these recurring dreams. And it's like, I'm, you know, got to figure this out. So the poor characters have to try and get together and sort out what's going on, if they can.
Okay, so what's your favorite scene in the book?
Um, uh, have you read it by any chance? No.
Not yet.
Okay. There are a couple of scenes involving trifle and whipped cream. Um, I won't go in any further than that, but that was a lot of fun to write those two scenes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is an excellent teaser for viewers because that could go either way.
Well, yeah.
That could go many ways with whipped cream. I'm just saying.
Well, let's just say, yeah, he does. Well, yeah. I mean, everything else is grim and dark, but the whipped cream is pleasant, I guess. I hadn't really thought about it until you asked the question. Well, yeah.
Okay, we will leave it on the whipped cream there. And so, what was the hardest scene you had to write in the book?
The end. There's the major confrontation at the end where all the characters get together, and is this going to be the last time it happens? Because it's happened 4 times before. Do they have enough time? Can they stop it? And I got 4 characters interacting here, and I wanted it to make sense, and I didn't want to make it look like I was just, oh, okay, I'm going to end it now. I'll just throw this in here, and this is what this character does, and that's the end of it, and we're over. It had to be believable, and I went through it a couple of times, And is it too gory? I don't want it to be too gory, but is it too violent? Maybe not. Would this character say this at this time, and does it make sense? The choreography of the scene, and it was just, all the rest of it was just like bang, 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 bang. But that one was just like, oh, shit, because it's the clincher. It's the end. If I don't get that one right, toss the book. So yeah, that one. When I finally finished it, it was like, oh yeah, it worked. At least for me, it did. So
Yeah, you gotta stick the ending, all right.
oh yeah.
So, how long have you been writing?
Well, it depends. I started writing when I was about 7. I was in England, and friends of mine and I would write little vignettes about bomber pilots and fighter pilots, because this was the early 60s, and we still, we don't remember World War II, but there was still a lot of World War II around. Then I lost my job at the bookstore in the mid 90s and started writing again because I was out of work for a couple of years, and I uh, I wrote a novel and 2 children's books and a bunch of short stories. Then I got a job and started working again. And then in 2017, I had a short story published. And since then, it's just been nonstop. And since I've retired in 2018, that's pretty much everything. I've got written 4 novels, about 25 short stories. About half of the short stories have been published. So, basically 8 years seriously. But 61 years unofficially. 61 years. So old.
Yeah, we don't like to think about that, do we?
Yeah.
So, why did you decide to write in the horror genre?
It's my favorite thing to read. Um, I started reading horror back around the beginning of the 70s. I was, reading Marvel and DC horror comics. Started reading Conan. Got into Robert E. Howard, who got into Lovecraft. Robert Bloch, Stephen King came on the scene. Zebra appeared and started pumping out all kinds of horror stuff. A lot of the publishers were reprinting old horror classic stuff, and I just was totally immersed. And then started going to a convention in 1987 in Rhode Island, Nikon, and I've been going ever since, and meeting all the horror writers. And it's like, I want to be part of this. And I really have a lot of fun with this because I can do nasty things. And it's not really me, or is it? It's just a lot of fun. You can have monsters, you can have ghosts, you can have just somebody going mad, or you can have absolutely nothing, and it's just somebody's up on a high building, and that's pretty horrific for me. Like I'm absolutely terrified about that. So horror is just about anything. It lends itself to westerns, romances, science fiction, history. It's wide open, and you can play with all kinds of stuff. And there's always something that's happened that you can go for and just twist it and like throw in one of the elder gods or something, or there's a vampire over here, or some weird crap that's going on. Some guy's a serial. Okay, little tiny thing. I had a short story where this guy is walking past a cemetery, and there's something strange in the cemetery, and he's trying to figure out what it is. So he takes out a Tupperware container, and he pulls out a foot and starts chewing on the toe. Now, what is weird about this? He's trying to think, and then he walks away. And like, okay, that's kind of horrible. It's kind of weird. What's that all about? It's kind of fun. Is it necessarily horror? Maybe.
So, what do you enjoy most about writing in the horror genre?
Research. It's all it's all about the research. I get to spend hours upon hours looking up stuff, reading about battles, reading about weapons, reading about people. The first book I had published recently, I spent weeks and weeks researching trees and flowers. It's all about nature, and I wanted to know like what trees grew where, what's the mythological story behind certain trees and certain flowers, and all that kind of like just anything that involves research is just so much fun. Even doing a story about a recipe and having to figure out, okay, how exactly do you cook this stuff? I better look that up to make sure, because I don't want to look like an idiot. So yeah, it's all about the research. for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of YouTube videos on historic cooking, so that makes this pretty easy.
Yeah, watch some TV too. So,
Yeah. So, is there an aspect of writing horror fiction that you find difficult?
uh, yes, um, gore. I tend to be on the quiet side of horror, um, Charlie Grant kind of thing. More implied. Um, Things are about to happen. And you cut away, and you can hear the noise of whatever's going on, but you don't actually see it. That was one of the the surprising things when Ken was sending me edits. He said, "Can you make this scene a little gorier?" It's like, really? You want more blood? Okay. Because naturally, I kind of pull back. It's so and sword and sorcery, anything like I tried writing some sword and sorcery horror. I just cannot do it. It's utter crap. Um, Even though I was, you know, Robert E. Howard, I was immersed in Howard and Jakes and Fritz Leiber, and can't write that stuff to save my life. But horror, yeah, and gory, twisted, but not necessarily gory. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so who are some of your favorite authors?
Well, Charles L. Grant, um, master of quiet horror. Um, I wrote some down. A guy named Tim Cook, who writes Canadian history books, military history. I devour anything by him because the way he writes history is just so all encompassing with the personal side, the battle side, and um, uh, Stephen King, of course. Um, William Goldman, Princess Bride. Um, Anything he's written is just gold. Goldman. Clive Barker, Robert McCommon. Oh man! So recently, there's a fellow named Ed Kurtz, who's written a series of novels, and every one of them is different, and everything he writes is just pure brilliance, and I can't recommend him highly enough. He's just a wonderful writer. Todd Kiesling is another one. He had a book come out 2 days ago, his latest novel, and I highly recommend him too. There are so many. I hesitate to name them because I'm going to leave out somebody I might know who might think, well, don't you like me? Yeah. So yeah, they're really, I like pretty much like everything I've read. Like John Wyndham, that's another old favorite of mine. Yeah. Agatha Christie, of course. Oh, John Creasy. I could go on forever. John Creasy wrote something like 750 detective novels starting in the 30s. He's always been my inspiration because, if he can crank out 750 novels, surely I can do one or two. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So tell us about some of the other books you've written.
Well, I happen to have them sitting right here. This is it's a young adult. Family moves to a small town and there's weird crap going on. And again, it's another romance. The main character is 18, a nonconformist, sees strange stuff going on, doesn't want to be part of everything. So where does that go? This one, King of the Wood, which is part of the first part of a trilogy. What if all the wood in your house started growing? What would you do? And that's what the characters in here have to figure out, because nature's coming back. The guy goes to check his bookshelves and they've got roots all of a sudden, and every flower in his garden is blooming in the spring, and they're not supposed to because some of them don't bloom until the fall. But so yeah, it's sort of a nature thing, and then got about let's say 25 or so short stories, a lot of war ones. I tend to write a lot of funny stuff. I don't really like taking things too seriously, because it's much more fun to be funny about it. Have somebody killing somebody, but they're a complete klutz and they keep slipping in the blood and just making a mess, just getting frustrated because they can't keep the body on the gurney. It keeps falling off. And why am I doing this? And I'm getting blood all over me, and this is not right. So silly stuff.
Okay, so what's your next project? What can readers expect from you in the future?
Well, I mentioned it to tons and tons of people, and I've been doing it. And this time I'm sincere. Um, I lived in Windsor in the 70s, and right across the river from Detroit, Motor City. rock and roll capital of the world. I have all my ticket stubs from about 50 concerts I attended in the 70s. So I'm working on a ghost story, murder mystery set in Detroit in the concert halls in the 70s. And it's a fella in the 90s trying to figure out what the heck is going on, because he was in love with this girl that he would see at concerts, never had the nerve to speak to her. And then in the mid 90s, he sees her exactly as she was in the 70s. And it's like, she's a ghost and she asks for his help. So he has to figure out what happened to her. And
Hmm.
I have all the, well, like I said, I have the ticket stubs. I have all the venues. I know where everything was and the venues, what the views of the stages were, all the bands, even have their set lists. And I actually found some video from some of the concerts I saw, like Thin Lizzy in 1976, of all things. Um, so I'm trying to do that, and that's my main musical inspiration is writing about all the rock bands I loved when I was a lot younger, that I still love. So hopefully I can finish that. I've been working on it for like 6 or 7 years, and I keep putting it off to do other stuff. So
Yeah. Well, it sounds very cool, so I hope you do get it finished.
I'm yeah, it's my next big thing to do, and everybody's been bugging me to finish it, so I better before somebody else does it. So,
Okay, so I think we'll wrap the interview up
oh,
here. I'd like to thank you for being a
oh,
guest. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Okay, so that's it for this episode, and bye for now.
Ciao.